All right, we will get this workshop. The Kennedale City Council, June 15th, 2026 at 5:30 at City Hall Council Chambers, 405 Municipal Drive, Kennedale, Texas, 76060. Make note that all members of the council are here and accounted for. And we'll start off with the invocation, if Bryant will lead us to that. And then we'll follow up with the pledges led by our Mayor Pro Tem. Will everybody please stand? Pledge the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. All right, first item is discussion regarding bond issuance for the 26-27 fiscal year. I'm going to turn this over to our city manager, Daryl Hall, and he'll give a presentation.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Mayor, thank you. Council, welcome for our first, I'll say our bond issuance workshop. So we have our experts here to help us out tonight. So we have Jack from Semco to come up and help us work us through some of the financial numbers that it's going to be presented, how we can go about issuing a $5 million bond. Tonight, we're going to also, after Jack gets up and explains and be able to answer questions from you. The idea is not necessarily to talk about some of the projects that we can complete with the $5 million bond. It's in reference to, can we afford it? What are we getting out of it? What's the rates? What's the language in the bond? What can we do with that? How we can move forward with that? So Jack will be able to answer all those questions. Any questions that you've had over the last couple of weeks, Jack is here to help us work us through that. Once we go through that on the financial side, I also have Frieza Nichols here to help us work through the Little School Road project, what that looks like, and other projects that we can entertain to see what we can do to improve our infrastructure also with this bond. So that will be two separate communications. But Jack, if you want to come up, he'll be the first on the list. And again, if you have any financial questions or anything like that associated with the bond, the length of the bond, the percentage rates, things of that nature, what we can and cannot do with it, this will be a perfect time for him to come up and be able to answer those questions. And as we go through, obviously, we have John on our side to be able to help us maneuver through that. So, Jack, if you would come on up and we'll see if we can give you some questions.
Perfect. Mayor, Council, thank you all for having me out. My name is Jack McCliney with Samco Capital Markets. Really, I'm here to field any questions you all may have about the notice of intention coming up tomorrow.
Hey, Jack. I guess just to start with, what's the interest rate?
We have been running the latest preliminary numbers we have ran were at 4.25% interest rate. We suspect rates to come in and lower than that. We would hope to be right about the 4% range. If we went out to market today is where we would expect things to be, in between 4% and 4.25%.
And for bonds in the past, just as a reminder, what's been the average interest rate for those?
Recently, right about the 4% to 4.25% range. Within the past 9 months, we have seen things dip slightly below 4%, but really over the past year and a half with market volatility, the stuff going on in the Middle East, and before that, everything going on in Ukraine. We've really seen them sitting at 4+ in recent history. Going back before that, COVID, we of course saw rates get down to 2% and even below, but we expect things right now to be right around that 4%.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Could you explain how
Oh.
the different term lengths could affect that rate?
So with the different term lengths on the fire truck, is what we've explored is 10%, 10-year term, 15-year term, and then all the way out to the full 20-year term. With the portion of the fire truck being $2 million to $2.3 million, somewhere in that range, we're really not going to see much interest rate fluctuation by the smaller amortization on the fire truck. If I can tell you the interest savings that we would have with the shorter amortization, and the interest savings would take us from $2,486,000 of interest with the full 20-year amortization to $2,107,000 of interest over the full length of the term on the 10-year amortization of the fire truck.
So my math says that's about 300,000.
Yes, sir.
So Jack, I just want to make sure I understood that right. If the fire truck, even at a 10-year note, is 2.3 million in principal and 2.1 million in interest?
No, that is,
So if you just repeat back what you just said on the interest payments.
the interest payments without structuring the fire truck portion down to 10 years. So 20-year amortization schedule all the way through. The total interest payments are projected to be $2,486,000. With the 10-year amortization of the fire truck, we're projecting those to be roughly $2,107,000. So as the mayor said, roughly $350,000 difference in interest cost over the term of the borrowing.
So I think one of the concerns that I had, and maybe they're shared, is the fire truck being, we want to keep the term of the fire truck to equal the life of the truck at the most. We don't want to have a 20-year note on an asset that after year 13 or 10 is costing us more than we can, cost us more to operate it than we want, or we need to look to retire it. How do other cities kind of structure their bonds when they're doing that?
That is a good question. And the life of the fire truck is, of course, something I cannot fully speak to. I'm sure the chief here would have a better insight to that than I do. But with the financings of fire trucks, we do see a lot going out the full term when packaged with another bond deal. I don't know if you want to speak to the possible grant funding at all.
So Chief Peterson will speak to the life cycle of the truck later, but a couple things really quick on this is that we have applied for grants for the loose equipment that goes along with the truck. So the idea with the language in this bond allows us a lot of flexibility to do potential water sewer projects or road projects. The idea that we might be able to lower what the bond has to pay for the truck and roll that on to another project. So in that case, the project would have a different life cycle than the truck itself. For example, if we get a $400,000 grant to cover the equipment and we're paying that on a 10-year note, but we roll that to a street, that street definitely should have more than a 10-year expected life. So if we're only focusing on expected life, there's some variables that would go beyond the truck itself.
Yeah, but those are all what ifs. We can't guarantee we'll get a grant.
Again, I'll save the expertise on the truck for later. I don't want to speak on that because it's beyond my body of knowledge, but you will get that later.
I appreciate it. I don't want to say yes to something on 20 years thinking we might get a grant and then that would offset some of the debt potentially. So.
Grant would need to be up front though before we actually make the purchase. So as far as that goes, we know within 90 days.
Okay.
But this is a standard financing structure that we do see across the board.
So is there an advantage? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's an advantage from just the layman's point of view of going to a 20-year on the fire truck, unless hypothetically, you get grant money and then hypothetically, we could use it for another road. That would be the advantage.
Correct, and that really does come down to, of course, a policy decision on y'all's end. So nothing really for me there. The one kind of minute detail that I will bring up is, and again, this will be the chief to allude to more. If the fire truck is a full 20-year term, one of the benefits that we see to financing assets to their full length of life is the tax burden of that asset gets spread across all of the citizens that then reap the benefit of said asset. So where we could shorten up the fire truck as short as we wanted, and hypothetical, say in 2 years you pay it off immediately, and that lasts for 20 years. Your current citizens are paying for the fire truck that is really going to be benefiting the growth that is coming in the future years. So that would be the benefit that we see in financing the length of an asset. But other than that, that would just be a policy decision.
Could you explain in layman terms again? That's a great term for today. What, as a homeowner looking to compare the bond market compared to a mortgage payment? You purchase a new home, you have a 15-year mortgage or you have a 30-year mortgage. That 15-year mortgage most often always has a lower interest rate. Could you explain why the bond market does not?
They're going to be the back end bonds on the bond market are really driving up most of the curve, the yield curve that the bonds get priced on. So the buyers are wanting to grab those back end bonds with a longer interest rate, meaning a longer amount of time that they're going to get paid back on it. So they want to grab those and hold on to those. So that is where we're able to get fluctuation in our price. So the more bonds that are on the back end of the maturity schedule, the more flexibility that we're then going to have in the pricing of the bonds in the market. And as you get up with higher values, then yes, you are fully correct. The shorter term, you'll get to carry a shorter interest rate with those. But when it comes down to $2.3 million, that really isn't quite enough to make or break anything in the Texas municipal market when there are some sharks out there that are going out billion-dollar bond issues, and that $2.3 million, as big as it is to a city, as big as it is to all of my clients in the market itself, that really is just kind of a small bite.
If I can make one comment real quick that went to rate. If you remember the last time we issued bonds, we received a bond rating increase from S&P. It was from AA- to AA. So that does play into our favor. Part of this process, we will meet with S&P Global again in July if you move to go ahead with the vote tomorrow.
John, which one are you recommending? I guess which one can we afford? Is it 10-year, or obviously anybody can afford the 20?
I prefer the 20, just given what we can do with the rate. And we're talking over the span, $300,000 is a lot of money. I'm not trying to discredit that, but I think what it could do to our rate and our inflexibility there, I would rather do the 20. That, and as you'll hear later, the truck will last for 20 years. It will be serviceable for that span.
Yeah, I mean, that's also fairly hypothetical because I did some reading on these trucks and they'll last 20 years in rural areas. But I guess it depends, and this is a chief question, on how much we're driving it. Plus, and maybe we ought to bring him up here now because I'm going to follow up with that, because you have an engine right now that I assume will have to be replaced, and that will go back into reserve status. And then the ladder truck will be the primary truck for 10 years, and then it'll move into reserve status. And then do we buy another engine, or do we end up buying another ladder truck? Because again, I'm really struggling here on the 20-year note, because you say we could have 400,000 in grant, but we could also save 350,000 in interest. That seems to be sort of a wash. And again, layman, so you're gonna have to walk me through that a little bit.
It's your opinion that matters, not mine.
No, your opinion matters a whole lot to me.
I don't get to vote in this.
Oh, well, that's true.
I mean, I can have the chief come up now, since we're buried in on the truck, and that is well beyond what Jack and I can speak to.
Okay.
Could I ask you one more question, Jack, please?
Oh, yes, sir.
Could you explain with a bond issuance, the bond issuance, for example, if we do $5 million, is that issued all at one time? Or is it broken up there at the time of the transaction?
So the entire $5 million will go out to the market at one time. It will then be broken up into 20 separate maturities that get sold individually of themselves. It all goes to the market as one, but in the market, it then gets broken up into individual maturities, which then get broken up beyond that for as investors go on and on.
So at the end, the interest rate would not change. Let's say we issued the $5 million bond, we purchased the truck within the next 6 months, and then we do the other allocations are done 1 year from now. There's no rate difference in between those rates
No, sir.
based upon the time of the allocation of those funds.
It just depends on where the market is at that time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening.
Well, Chief, you've heard us kind of talk about the life cycle of a ladder truck. And again, my concern would just be if we go to the 20-year note on the ladder truck, is that is maybe in the best case scenario, those trucks will last 20 years, but at some point they start to cost more to keep functioning than they're worth in some cases. So what's your read on that? What's your opinion on that?
So the mayor was right. He was making comments about the use of it. How many calls does it end up running? Just what kind of excessive use goes on with it. But 20 years is quite a long time. Technology changes with the truck, but the truck will last to that. And of course, there will be increased maintenance costs. You just sometimes never know what's going to happen with the motor, but you got to look at just its responses, how many calls that it's going, the constant use, and then the engine runtime. How many fires has it pumped? And so that's all runtime on that engine. But the general rule of thumb from the National Fire Protection, NFPA, they 0 to 15 years, a apparatus can be first line response. And then at the 15 to 20 year, they recommend going to reserve status. And after 20 years, it's mentioned to go ahead and not use that truck anymore. In our situation, I don't know why it couldn't go to 25. That truck, as long as it's cared for and maintained every year like we're going to do, that ladder truck can continue to perform for us. We will watch engine hours, mileage, and just what changes in technology happen with the apparatus. But it's going to serve us for many years, and it's definitely going to enhance what we do as fire operations in our city. So that's kind of the life of the truck. It will make it to 20 years. Our oldest truck now is a 2011, and it's in reserve status. But it's still a reliable truck, right around 50,000 miles on it.
Talk about use of the truck and the mileage. Normally, when an ambulance call goes out, the other truck follows behind it. Are we going to be following behind it with the ladder truck?
Yes, sir.
That's
That'll
going to
be the first out truck.
Yeah, that could be your first out, so that'll add mileage.
Nice, because we want that truck with us, not sitting in the
Right.
station. Should we clear from that ambulance call and we catch our building fire?
So what is your rotation plan then? Say and it seems to me, it probably doesn't matter to you whether we do 15 or 20. I mean, we just need the truck, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So what is the rotation status? So you've got the one that's in reserve. It's now going on 15 years. You've got your frontline truck. So that frontline truck is how old? That can't be that one too old.
It is 20, 2022.
22, so it'll go in reserve and it'll be good for the next what?
Several years.
Uh,
It's a newer truck. It's
Right.
going to last in reserve status for quite some time, but just because a truck's in reserve status, it does get rotated into play as first out. And that's when we'll talk about this ladder truck, for example. Once we get it, if it needs to go to the shop for preventative maintenance, or we have to test the aerial every year. That's just part of our ladder testing. There's going to be times that it goes, whether it's tires, whatever. So that reserve truck will step into play. But we won't necessarily rotate them just because another month has gone by. Let's put the ladder truck as second out and the reserve one go into play to be first out. So
But-
at this point, I really don't have a rotation status.
Right, because they'd both be fairly new trucks. Now, the idea is that the ladder truck will take what, 3 years to get delivered?
It's 36 to 44 months to design and build.
So almost 4 years.
So a year could go by before it even gets on the assembly line. And then that construction starts of the truck.
And we have to pay before the construction starts.
You do start paying for it. Part of that is the fact that you pay 10% of the cost ahead of time to commit to the order.
So if it's a 20-year bond and we place the order in October, say hypothetically, then we may not get that truck for 4 years, close to 4 years.
I would hope it doesn't go that long, but yeah.
Yeah, and then if you run a 15-year life on the truck, then you're back up to close to 20. Is my math right? Is my math right? Okay. I do math occasionally.
But when we finally get it, it's new and it starts its service life of 20, 25 years.
So I'm
25 would be hard to picture it reaching that before we look at replacing or putting in reserve status and have a newer truck in its place as first out.
I have a feeling you and I will not have to worry about that problem.
That's right.
Probably
not.
Chief,
So, hang on,
when
let
you
me-
pay it, Chief, do you pay it by benchmarks or is it 10% upfront and then final payment for you?
I'd have to look at more detail in the quote that to make the order, it's 10% of the cost of the truck of what we pay up front to
So,
get to that price, I guess you could say.
So John, with that in mind, if let's just say there's a final payment, a balloon payment at the end, all that's in investments and escrow, or are we pulling all the money out up front? I'm just trying to see other ways to mitigate this because usually we wait till we pay for it, put it in investment, use that interest to pay off.
It's a little embarrassing, but I wasn't paying attention. So could you?
So the chief said that it's 10% upfront.
Mhm.
It's pretty much a 4 year. We're hearing about 3 years out here for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Let's call it 4. And we pay a final payment at the end. All that money is going to be in an investment account,
Mhm.
right? So it'll be creating interest and
Yeah, it rolls into our investment plan.
and then we use that interest to pay off our bonds
Yes.
in that's
It's no different than like the Interceptor project or some other projects. Went out and sought bond funding for, and then we're paying even the public safety remodel. We didn't pay that up front. We've paid it monthly based on the work that's complete. So while we're holding the money, yes, it's part of our investment plan.
So my approach with these bonds has been a little bit different the last couple of years. For me, all these projects are a need. I'm okay with that. So for me, it's a block of money, right? So we want to borrow 5 million. What's the total we will pay out by the end of let's just say 20, since you're recommending 20. Thank you. Okay, and then my final question to you, John, is with our projections that you and I have been talking about for a couple of years, the next 3 years, next 3 years after that kind of thing, would this stifle us in the future for any future projects?
No, it won't.
Yeah, we'll might even have a healthier bond rating or credit rating to do even projects in the future.
Hopefully, when we were told when we went from the AAA or the AA minus to AA that there was about a 3-year period that we were expecting to go through that cycle, we did that almost immediately.
Yeah.
So there was a, if I could speak, there was a change in the grading metric that played into our favor. So as far as the rating, I don't see us getting an improvement for probably another 2 years, but we'll know in July. We'll meet with S&P if we go forward with this process tomorrow. So we'll have an idea from that point. But if we're still going on the 3-year window to get re-rated or to have an improvement, we're still in that window. So I don't anticipate it going up immediately.
Yeah, of course.
But we are growing the reserve, and the directors, they've all done a really good job of responsible spending, and growing the reserve is a significant metric as part of the score that we get for improving ratings. So how we've been spending our money with the general fund and then our sales tax growth is definitely helping our bond rating, which will, to your question, it definitely helps our future capacity and the rates that we'll pay in the future if we so decide to issue debt.
Chief, I have a few more questions for you, real quick, if you don't mind, about the truck specifically. In the military, we always rate our readiness, yellow, green, yellow, or red. I think that kind of simplifies things. I was listening to you say that it's going to take another 4 years if we made that decision now to bring that truck online. And you said the truck that's currently in reserve is a 2011. So in those 4 years, you're going to be crossing over that 20-year threshold. Would that be an accurate statement? Meaning 20 years as being a reliable source for your reserve.
In fact, I mean, it's a 2011 truck that we have now in reserve status. Basically, it's at the 15 years. So it would probably be phased out if we get this ladder truck. One, I don't have the space in our station to keep that extra truck, but we would look at, okay, what's our options of storing it? Because it's still a reliable truck, but it is simply an engine.
But delaying this decision would mean then you were relying on that equipment beyond what's recommended for readiness.
Right.
Could you speak to some of the uses for that truck? I think that for some of us who've never served in the fire department, would like to know a little bit more about that truck specifically and what additional capabilities it adds to your fleet.
Need to know more about the.
Yeah, like talk a little bit about aerial and some of the other.
If I could, I'll pull up the presentation I prepared. It'll have a lot of bullet points of the use of an aerial. I can tell you that just right off the bat, just by getting an aerial into our fleet, it just increases our standard. It enhances what we're able to do for our own city.
Chief, while you're pulling up the presentation, if you can probably answer this while you're doing that, do we still owe anything on the 2022 truck, the current active truck?
I don't believe so. I believe the 2022 was a grant that we got that truck on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could I also ask Chief real quick? The quotation on the Quint truck or the ladder truck, that quotation is locked in at the time of purchase, correct?
That's part of that 10% in the agreement with the purchase is that price will not change once we commit to an order. So as things change, as it's being built, that's our price that we made an agreement with.
That price is
That's
locked in.
probably true for any manufacturer of
All right,
of fire trucks.
thank you.
Did it pop up? So again, this is going to increase our capabilities to provide service to our community and the citizens of Kennedale. It's not only providing a better service by having the enhanced equipment on the truck, but it's increasing our safety measures that we have for our firefighters. So this fire apparatus is an aerial ladder truck. We call it a ladder truck, but it's called a Quint because it does have 5 functions that it's able to do. So honestly, it can do everything our fire truck does, except it carries more equipment. There's more space on it, and it has that aerial ladder, 107-foot aerial that I guess that's not going to pop up. Or what? I don't know what to do to make it go up there, but
If only we had a tech guru here. Only we had a tech guru.
But buying a expensive truck like this, it's an investment into our public safety coverage for our city. And without a ladder truck or without any apparatus, you can't perform the job that we need to do with the fire hose that's needed on the scene. So I don't know. There we go. So I'll go back just to one of the trucks that we went and looked at to get an idea of what we need, what we'd like. Our apparatus committee went to Burleson, and that's Burleson's truck that they got. It is a Pierce, and it's 107-foot aerial. And so that's kind of the concept that we're looking for in an apparatus. But by doing this again, we are able to protect life and property much better, or that's just continuing our mission statement, but we do it better with the fact that this provides an elevated water stream, elevated access to multi-story buildings. We can get that master stream in place when it's needed for certain types of incidents. And of course, with Kennedale continuing to grow, our population is increasing. We're seeing more buildings that are large, and it doesn't have to be that multi-story building necessarily. It could just be a large home. But the schools, churches, things like that exist, this is where that aerial device can come in. I wanted to touch a little bit about our staffing and how our department's set up. And you have our admin staff that is 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It consists of myself, assistant chief, admin assistant, and our fire marshal's office. And then, of course, we have a medical director that controls or coordinates our EMS program. Then there's 3 shifts, and each shift, they work a 48-96, 48 hours on, 96 off. And they have a lieutenant, engineer, and 4 firefighters. Everybody's a paramedic as well. Our minimum staffing is 5. So that Quint, that ladder truck would always have 3 on it, I'm sorry. And then 2 on the ambulance. So we're always staffed that way every day, 24/7. The current apparatus that we have in our department, we have the top 3 are all first line, first out. Our engine 59, we have a brush truck, and the medic. And then the remaining units that we have are all in a reserve status.
Yeah, what's the life expectancy of an ambulance?
An ambulance is going to see a lot more usage and miles put on it. We've got 3 new ambulances, roughly. 2021 is our oldest one, and that's in a reserve status. And the newest one we just have, we don't have that in service just yet, but those 2 will interchange as Medic 59. So those are our 2 newest ones. An ambulance will usually go 5 to 6 years depending on its usage. And it does see a lot of run time, a lot of back and forth to the area hospitals. And you just see more time on that truck. And then our Polaris is that side-by-side type car that we use at special events, and you don't see it very much, but it's there in our station. So again, the 2011 Pierce fire engine is in reserve status, and we would look at phasing that out unless we talk about something different with that. But it's still performing, still reliable fire apparatus.
When you say phasing out, is it possible that once the
Well, it'll reach that 20-year mark where, okay, and if I'm not staffing it, and I have the newest, our 2022 engine would be in that reserve status. So I have an apparatus to get into. I'm not sure that we would want to hang on to the 3rd apparatus.
I mean, like sell it somewhere?
But with that, this could be traded in towards this truck, or we turn around and auction off.
So I was going to ask, on the 2011 apparatus, what's the disposal rate for that? So we were to trade it in, sell it on the used market. What do they go for?
Yeah, you're probably going to get more doing a trade-in. but the auction can vary when you go to sell it. All I can reference is the recent auction we did with the police Tahoes. You know, we brought in pretty good amount of money on that, but it's hard to say what you would get. I would suspect for our engine, if we were to put it on there, 30 to 50,000 might be the auction.
Okay, so not moving the needle, not 500,000 or anything that's really going to move the needle towards the 2.3 million.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
If the used one only brings in 30,000 on trade in, it's not moving the needle towards the $2.3 million new
Yeah,
apparatus. So
it's very light.
I see that. All right, thank you.
I got
This
something.
slide was just talking
Excuse me,
about
Chief.
calls for service, but
I got something I can add to David. Back in 1997, we bought a Quint. It was a 75-foot Miracle in France. I think when they actually sold it back to get an engine, they got $120,000 for it. So
yeah, and that's also dependent on if you sell it with the equipment on it, which some of our equipment we would move over or use as a reserve equipment. Axe may not be bad necessarily, but it does help sell that truck when you include the equipment with it. So again, reasons for having this ladder truck is really a little bit of common sense. We're able to do our job better. Should there be a need to do rapid rescue of occupants from upper floors or even on top of a roof. It provides better safety for our firefighters. And again, the response effectiveness on certain incidents at schools, assisted living facilities or nursing homes, and of course our apartments. It does carry extra ground ladders. So, I mean, we're able to have more ground ladders, but this aerial ladder go in place right away if we have that need to access the roof or do that elevated water stream. And of course, when we go into a defensive operation, that's when if you think about the Dallas fire where they had the gas explosion, the building is pretty much leveled and they did elevated streams on that just to control the fire and protect the exposures that were going on. They were looking at a rescue mode and trying to knock down a lot of that fire. That's a real extreme situation, but we're not going to get in there with hose lines and try to be in a building that's either collapsing or already collapsed. And again, we're delivering large amounts of water from an elevated stream that we can get onto a situation. One thing about all hazards response is it's not just fires that we might use it at. The rescue capability of a flooding situation or somebody drove into high water, we'll get near that water's edge and we can actually, whether it's a creek or just a flooded roadway, we can put the ladder out to pluck that person off of the roof of the car, especially if we don't have a boat that's coming to us, to do the water rescue. And the other thing it does is we knock down a fire. We can use it for lighting. So as it gets dark, there are large floodlights on the tip of that ladder that we can be above and just light up our scene to help keep things even safer. Talk a little bit about mutual aid. Currently, we have ladder companies that come to our city when we have a building fire, and that's an automatic response that we have set up through our dispatch for mutual aid to come. But we want to actually improve what we do as a department and be able to be self-sufficient in our own manner. The other advantage of an aerial ladder truck pulling up at a house fire, or even the apartment fires, we can be placed right away in a strategic placement to use that aerial ladder versus waiting on Mansfield to come that might be 9 minutes out. And we're already there with our engines and hose lines. That aerial ladder would be placed where we could use it for rescue or the elevated streams. The other thing too is as a incident is calming down, we have our own ladder truck to still continue with our overhaul and whatever goes on with the scene, and we can release those mutual aid companies back to their cities.
Do we know if Forest Hill or Everman has a ladder truck?
Forest Hill does not. So Mansfield does, Arlington does, Everman does, but we don't see Everman much on our responses. On our first alarm response, we get a Mansfield ladder truck, Mansfield ambulance, and a battalion chief as well coming to our fire. We get Forest Hill, and I have to look here. Yeah, so we'll get the additional medic because when we respond to a building fire, our engine and our medic are with us, the entire 5 guys. And because it's a building fire, you have to have more than just 5 guys taking care of whatever kind of size fire it is. But we'll get the Mansfield Quint, which is their ladder truck, Mansfield Battalion, a Mansfield medic. If it goes to a second alarm, then we're looking at Fort Worth, Pantego, and another Mansfield engine joining us on that scene. And that's where it's turning into a manpower situation. But we don't even, we can call for Everman, but they're not on our automatic being dispatched list for a fire.
Do we respond to, say, Forest Hill?
We do. We've had 10 mutual aid calls this year, or 10 structure fires, building fires. 9 of those were actually not in our city. So there is a lot of shared mutual aid back and forth. We get Mansfield in here quite a lot. But as far as a building fire for us, we haven't had one where we needed several engine companies on there. It was easily, we were there quick enough, easily knocked down and taken care of. The school fires we had last year, high school and junior high, we had a ladder truck on that scene.
Any additional questions for the chief? No, I think we're good.
I got one. You talked about the different uses for the apparatus. But another thing that I think is a key that we need to look at too is it's going to do something to our ISO rating too, right? So
I went to this last slide here, and that is one thing that's.
sorry,
We're currently at a 3, and we didn't get points for a ladder truck. So we were 9 points away from getting a rating of 2. And so that would be something, once I get the ladder truck in place, we were planning to increase on our training, just overall our fire training. And those are going to add up those 9 points that we need. So we would look at doing a review, and I don't see why we wouldn't approach or obtain that level 2 of insurance rating. And then that's a benefit back to the community and businesses. Yep. But, you know, looking at the future too, as we're planning this ladder truck, our city is going to continue to grow. We're going to get more buildings, and we just need to be prepared for that and do the right thing by being able to provide within our own city.
So that's $2.3 million in the $5 million bond. Do we have any questions about what the other 2.7 is?
Yeah, I got quite a few.
Oh, go ahead.
Um,
Thanks, Chief.
do we want to let Freesa Nichols come up and speak on the Little Road extension?
Yeah.
Start that off.
Do we have any more questions for Jack? I mean, as far as face
No.
value with the years or.
Any questions for Jack? We can let him go home. I can't think of anything. Yeah, you can go. All right, see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
When I was looking at this list of projects here, and we have 130,000 for Peggy Lane, reconstruction. I've always been understanding that Peggy Lane and Vera Lane are private streets, not owned by the city.
That I'm aware of, they're city streets.
I would double check that because as long as I remember, they were private streets. There's a couple other private streets, like the one you may know it. It's off New Hope right before you get to the railroad tracks off the side.
Mansfield Avenue.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I just
Which
want
one has
to,
the tree in the middle of it?
right. Can we just double check that? I mean, because I was always under that assumption for 20 years, those were private streets. Unless they were, and they changed them somewhere 25 years ago.
They're all city street, except for that street that used to be private. What's that street down by you? No, the one down at the end of Sublet.
Mansfield?
No, on Sublet. Kennedale, I mean, call it Sublet, you know, that little one that goes to the dead end?
Oh, you're talking about Glaze.
Glaze.
Glaze is a private.
But it's no longer a private street. The city acquired that sometime in 2016, 2015.
From my understanding, the only two streets is Glaze, which is on Colette Sublet, and
Mineral.
Mineral?
Mineral is
a
not a
private-
private street. That's a public street.
Okay, I could be wrong.
But is it Village Street where the ballpark, and when it goes from pavement to dirt, then that's private. That's a drive.
Yeah, the
But-
back piece at the back of
Okay,
it's private, yeah.
thank you for that clarification.
in South Kenny.
On South Kenny, well, we just keep adding some more private streets. Questions about any of these bond projects before we get to Little School Road? Anything else on here?
I think my number one project I see on here is Eden Road Bridge. I think I had a gentleman call me Friday and he had the pleasure of running into the bridge. So I think that makes 16 times that there's been an accident on that bridge this year. So I really want to make that a priority and widen it. So
Do you mind if I step in real quick? One, I'd like to give a little bit of history with the Little School Road project to begin with.
Well, can you start with the Eden Road Bridge that he just mentioned? Because you talked about getting some money for that.
Correct. For Eden Road project, I have had a discussion with our commissioner, Lisa Simmons, in reference to help funding for that bridge. As of right now, we do have a verbal agreement that she would donate $600,000 for a deficiency fund for that. We are still in the process of getting the contract worked out. But as of right now, Ms. Simmons, Commissioner Simmons has allotted $600,000 for that bridge.
So is the 560,000 listed here, is that plus 600,000 more? So does the bridge really need 1.1
No,
million?
it's the cost of it is 560,000.
And
So-
that's just my calculation for the bridge. We are still waiting on the consultant to provide us a accurate construction cost for the bridge. So it might be up or might be down a little.
So even though,
Does that apply to all these projects, Christian?
Say again?
You said you're waiting on some final numbers. Does that apply to all these projects? Are these just estimated
Just for the
projections
bridge.
or just that bridge?
Yes.
so it's possible that the bridge may not cost us hardly anything if we get the agreement with the county.
That's correct. That's the intention.
So Christian, for the roads listed here, if we go back and look at the street study we did where they went around and analyzed all the roads and rated them, are these the ones, how do we pick these roads? Out of all the roads in the city, how did these make the list?
That's just a few that made it less. We have 13% of our network system that's very, and those are just one or two from the list. I'm
So I
putting
guess-
together a breakdown, a cost for all the poor streets. So we should have that probably in a week, another week or so.
All right, so again, how, of the ones listed here, we have keeping Little School Road to the side, 'cause that's the bigger number. of the 5 that have dollar values listed, there's 5 more that have no dollar values listed. What's the plan for those? Are we just saying we're going to repair those, but we don't have a cost for them? So over Grapevine Trail, Valley Lane, Trent Street, Mansfield Avenue, Pine Meadows, I don't see a dollar value listed here, but I see them listed as projects. So help me understand those 5 that have nothing.
I think I provided a cost for some of the street.
Yeah, let me help Christian out. He's not aware of the other streets that were added to it. The ones that you see a cost associated, Christian was able to give us an estimate. The reason why you see Grapevine, Valley, Trent, Mansfield Avenue, and Pine Meadows, those are listed on the consultants in very poor condition that we have looked at to get repaired. Those cost analysis Christian has not been able to provide. That came in at the last moment. The ones prior to that were things that we were looking at as putting into our budget for this coming budget for you to choose from. That's the reason why we have a cost analysis there for you to review today. As we're going through with the bond, and then this somewhat goes back to the Little School Road project. We were projecting for these streets, if we were not able to budget, we can have a possibility of bringing them into the bond to get them repaired. With that, those streets came through the City of Kennedale community survey. So a lot of those streets are coming from that location. Is from the community survey that we did back in December. That's the reason why you're seeing those street names.
Is there any,
Regards to
real quick on that point, Daryl, is there any correlation between the community survey requests for those streets and the report that we got in 23, early 24 that showed, I think it was a roughly 17%, the ones that were in that 17% were needed
So-
to be completely rebuilt?
Yeah, so when you look at Eden Road Bridge, Oak Ridge, Peggy, Shady, Sweeney Height, those streets are actually identified in the survey itself of being in basically moderate to poor
Could
condition.
you repeat those for me, please? Which ones?
They're on your
It's the one that has a process.
Okay, gotcha. The ones that are priced are the ones
Yeah.
that are correlated both with the survey and
and the
that report.
consultants.
Got it.
Yes.
And that's how you came up with the list.
Yes. As far as whenever you're looking at the community survey is indicating that they wish that we would look into more of the community roads that are inside of our neighborhoods. They seem to be, I don't say satisfied, but they're improved roadways from Sublet, New Hope, Eden Road, those Sweeney Height, those roads they were impressed with, and they did like those and understood that that was a priority. But they also asked that we look into the neighborhood streets and make repairs from that. That's where you come in. We're indicating the Eden Road Bridge, Oak Ridge Trail, Peggy Lane, Shady Creek, and Sweeney Height. So Sweeney Height, 3/4 of Sweeney Height has been rebuilt. However, we still lack right at 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet that need to be completed. That was one of them that Tarrant County came in and helped us out. Unfortunately, we were not able to do the rest of it. That's the reason why it's on the list as well. But that was the reason why basically they're moderate to poor condition. With it being identified in the community survey, that's the reason why it made the list. Again, that list of streets were going to be put into the budget for us to make a choice of what we want to move forward with. With that, obviously, with the addition of the 600,000 from Commissioner Simmons, that helps us tremendously. One, to help on a bridge that's been well past due getting rebuilt. So that's been a bonus for us in that aspect. Grapevine Trail, Valley Lane, Trent is all in a industrial area. However, it is also within a floodway. Anytime it does flood, those streets are covered and it creates even more issues within that. However, they are identified as very poor, and it's something that we can come in and maybe do an overlay with at minimum. I think if we do come in and do a reconstruction, the cost is going to be extremely high for minimum return in our investment with that. Mansfield Avenue, to what we had discussed a while ago, it is a short street. However, we do have residents that use that street on a regular basis, obviously. It's at minimum, but there's value in getting that street done. Same thing for Pine Meadows. It is a concrete street. So when you're looking at the survey or from our consultants, it's broken down by asphalt and concrete. So you'll see a list where obviously Grapevine Valley and Trent and Mansfield Avenue are asphalt streets. However, Oak Ridge, Peggy, and Shady Creek are concrete, and those are the ones that were in the survey to look at the concrete. We also, in our current budget, we done Hilltop, which also is a concrete street, and that's another reason why that road was chosen, because it's also listed as well to look at. I hope that helps a little bit.
Well, one of my concerns is looking at this list, you have Valley Lane, but Valley Lane, we have so many projects that are fixing to come up on it. So we have the stabilization on it for the creek.
That's correct.
And then we have Basin B going right down the middle of it.
That's
So why do we want to spend money on a road that we're going to have to tear up?
Well, again, the reason why these were identified as one, it's showing it's in very poor condition. I didn't want you to look at it and indicate that we're not looking at what needs attention today. To your point, Valley Lane, we should be with the stabilization of the creek. We should see improvement or start construction probably March or April timeframe. With that, you also see Trent. So Trent is also in that industrial area that needs help. Some of our discussion that we've had in the last 3 to 4 months, indicating some of the EDC property that we purchased goes from Kennedale Parkway to Trent. So the EDC property, we have 2 other properties that are in between us. We may end up needing to use that right away once Valley Lane gets under construction for either the sewer line or the stabilization of the creek. That's also one of the reasons why it's on here. It's not necessarily to improve the quality of the street in the industrial area, but more so to get to that industrial area that we would need to come in and rebuild the road.
Right, I agree with you on that. But when you talk about Trent Street, a lot of the damage to Trent Street is because of stormwater.
It is
It
correct.
has no place to drain. I mean, there is a drainage that goes to the creek, but you can't come in and cut ditch or culverts. So every time we redo this road, it's just going to hold water and collapse.
That's correct.
So.
So when you talk about Peggy Lane at $130,000 and concrete, are you planning on redoing Peggy Lane as just flat concrete, not curb and gutter? And if it's just concrete, does the county do that, or they just work with asphalt?
The
The
county
county
does
just
not do
work with
concrete.
asphalt. Peggy Lane, what we are proposing is just to go ahead and do a overlay.
Right, so but to do an overlay, you're going to overlay it with concrete, or are you going to tear it down to its base
Asphalt.
and do it with asphalt? But it's a concrete street right now.
No,
It's not.
it's not.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, that's my mistake.
Okay, look, I am new here. I don't remember all these things.
I'm fairly new as well.
But, originally, we planned to have Peggy Lane to do a full reconstruction with water, sewer, storm drain. But based on the price that we have for that, it's extraordinary for us. We couldn't pursue that. So based on the amount of complaints we've been getting almost every day, the city manager decided, well, to try to reduce the amount of complaint we get in, and we don't have the money for full reconstruction. Let's go ahead and appease the people by doing an overlay.
So if you take it down to its base and you build it back up, then do the overlay, then what is the life expectancy of that asphalt street?
Well, it depends on how thick we're going back. If we're going back with 2-inch overlay or 4-inch or 6-inch. If you go with a 6-inch, your lifespan, you're looking like minimum 20 years.
Okay, minimum 20.
4-inch probably 50 and 2-inch probably 10. It all depends.
And what is your plan for that? Is it 2, 4?
To go back and do a 2-inch, because the plan would be to go back in another 8-10 years to go back and do what's really needed, because we have asbestos cement sewer line in there.
Right.
Your water line is undersized. We have a drainage issue out there. So eventually we will need to go out there and find that estimated today as $3 million for that project.
Wow.
Right. So when we talked about Peggy Lane, I think last year too, I don't think 2 inches is going to be enough. There are craters in that road that are a foot deep.
And our engineers haven't looked at it, and
Well-
this is at the very beginning of.
We are saying craters and stuff because there's no drainage.
Right. But you just want, if we're going to just put an overlay on it to kind of help smooth it out, that's,
Yeah, we're gonna have, so the water don't stay on the road anymore.
We're currently, we go out there on a regular basis doing potholes. There's evaluation with it that it helps us in the long run as well to go out and ultimately fix the potholes and put an overlay on it, which should last us to the point that hopefully we can go in and redo the construction of the road to this point for sewer, water, curb and gutter, and the road itself, obviously.
yeah, it's definitely in need of some care. I just wonder if 130 is enough to cover it.
It's, like we said, it's just for the overlay.
And we're assuming that the county's going to put in some of that, right? They do what? They give us the manpower, the equipment, we buy the material?
Well,
Correct.
so far, the county hasn't responded back. We submitted a list for the county for this fiscal year, and they haven't responded back to me and say, yep, I'm ready to go and do an ILA. Because I think the county had some changes. They kind of expand the coverage area.
Mhm.
So Kennedale is like on the back burner. So if they don't give us an ILA, then it's going to be upon us to find another contractor to do it. So that might increase the cost of your street paving now.
Also, let me remind you, these are all estimates in a sense. If we look at it as today, we have zero money. So we're looking at the bond to help improve our infrastructure on our roads. So that's the intent of the $5 million. So when we're looking at these are rough estimate numbers. And it's to exactly what we're doing today is having us a discussion on how we can move forward. If we decide to issue the $5 million, what's the purpose? What can we do? And how do we come to this conclusion that we can do that? If you give me an opportunity, let me back up a little bit to the Little School Road, and that will give you better explanations, the reason why we're where we're at today. Unless, if you have other questions.
I got one more question before we move to the Little Road. On Peggy Lane, I think we engineered that
We did.
in 2021?
I think 2019 to 2020.
Do we know what the cost that was for redoing everything?
3 million.
3 million? Okay.
That-
And then,
And probably right now it's probably 3.1.
yeah, I want, you
3.3.
have to do your 15% on top of that to
Right.
figure
So
out.
we're looking like about 3.5 today.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Just to bring back basically whenever the Tarrant County Transportation election bond took place in 2021, I want to give you an explanation of how we are where we're at today. And now number one reason why we're issuing or asking to issue the $5 million bond issuance. With that, in 2021, the Tarrant County Transportation went to election or to people for a bond election for roughly a lot of money.
200 million.
200 million. Out of that 200 million, we had 3 projects, or at least 2 projects that I'm aware of. One was the Little School Road project. The other, from my understanding, was the Colette Sublet. Then we also had the Valley Lane stabilization as well. Kennedale Sublet realignment. And we'll talk about 2 of those 3. So out of those 2 or 3 that was submitted, 2 of them have been approved based off the 2021 Tarrant County bond election that was passed by Tarrant County. So all of Tarrant County passed that bond of the 200 million. Out of that, 2 projects were allotted for Kennedale, Little School Road project and the Kennedale realignment project. So it's 2 different projects. Out of those two, the Kennedale City Council voted to get the Little School Road project started. After that, the Kennedale realignment came after that decision was made. And Tarrant County issued that for us. They indicated they had remaining funds and if we wanted another project added. At that point, it was the Kennedale realignment that was added to that at a later date. And my understanding is roughly 2024, give or take a little bit. So those two projects out of the 2021 bond election. With that, we started the process of going through how do we go about the Little School Road project. It was allotted for a $13 million project. As we go into it and started investigating, looking at what we can do, we also learned that the 13 million was not accurate, that 13 million went up over 20 to give or take a little bit at that point. And I have some help here from Freeze and Nichols as we're getting through it. So that was our initial start talking about the bond. So this bond actually started back in 2024 as we move forward of how do we pay for that. So the incentive was, all right, in 2026 or 2025, we issued the $5 million to get the design, get everything settled and going forward with it so we can start the construction hopefully in 2027. So when we talk and we hear about $11 million bond, that's not accurate, it's 5. However, in 2027, the intent was to issue an additional 6 million for the construction of the Little School Road Bridge. But as we continue to investigate and move forward and Freeze and Nichols comes in and starts their engineering of one, where do we go? What's the route? What direction do we need to go? We also found out that it's no longer a $20 million project. Now we're at the $30 to $40 million project. At that point, we found out we can't afford that. So as we continue to go, our thought process, all right, let's start with the design, which was a 30% design. And that also was approved by the city council to move forward with a 30% design for Freeze and Nichols. With that, let me back up just a year before that. The city council also had, Freeze and Nichols gave us 3 choices to make the route of the Little School Road to New Hope. So that's phase 1. So phase 1 was going from Kennedale Parkway over the railroad to New Hope Road. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is from New Hope to Dick Price. So there's 2 phases. As we're going through this, Freeze and Nichols helped us choosing the right design. And what that design was entitled was basically, we were looked at, what is the best route? And we asked Freeze and Nichols to come up with what that route was. We had 3 choices to choose from. The city council chose the current route, which I believe is also in your packet. With that, that's where we're at today. The issuance of this bond was based off the Little School Road. With that, we have also learned as we started the process of talking to our bond attorneys, obviously, Safeco of what we can do, we have also learned we cannot issue debt without having the project at least started in the sense of construction within 3 years. So if a construction is not going to start within 3 years, we do not need to issue the debt for that road. It's not only for this 5 million, but it's also for the 6 million. We already know, one, we're not even to the 30% design of the project. So we already know we're not going to be able to start construction within 3 years. So the 5 million and 6 million is pretty much tabled in the sense that we're not going to be able to move forward with it, with the Little School Road. With that, we can move forward with continuing the design of 100%. And that's why you see that on your list in front of you. That 2.3 ultimately is what we're looking at to issue part of this debt for. We're currently, as we budgeted in 2024, 2025, we already gave $1 million for Freeze and Nichols to start the 30% design. That's the reason why you see the 1 million. That has not been completed yet, so therefore we're holding the money. At one point, Freeze and Nichols or Sydney is almost completed, and that money will be used. Currently, with the $30 million, $40 million price tag, engineering is roughly 10% of that cost. So we're looking at a total of phase one at $3 million. So that's the reason why you see a total of 2.3, with the idea that we also have a 50-50 match with Tarrant County Transportation Bond. So out of that, Tarrant County would pay 50%. However, some of those numbers, and Sydney may be able to help me out, we may not get the full 1.5 that we were anticipating. So that number may change a little bit. But as we move forward, we'll definitely be able to narrow that number down. Does that help out a little bit on the timetables of how we're getting to a $5 million and a $6 million bond over the next 2 years? With that, it's not that the Little School Road project is out of sight. It's not. We're just having to reset and reevaluate where we're at, how we're going to face that. And ultimately, as we move forward, we already know we need more funding opportunities. And how do we go about that? So the last year and a half has been full of a lot of communications with not only the city council, but TxDOT, Union Pacific, Tarrant County Transportation, Council of Governments, RTC, a lot of different moving parts as we were coming together, trying to figure out how do we come up with $30-40 million to have this project take place. And without that, as you know, we do not have the funding for a $30 million project. So that's why we're at where we're at today. We do know we had to start with a design, and we need a 100% design. North Central Texas Council of Governments, RTC, TxDOT, and our railroad are asking, well, what have you done? What investment have you went into this project? You're asking us for help and be able to fund this project. What have you done to move forward to get this? And one of the things they ask every time is, where's your design? Where's your engineering? Where are you at in that process? And right now, I have nothing to show. And that's the number one thing they ask for, is show me the design, show me your investment in the same project that you're wanting us to invest $30 million in. And that's what I'm asking today, is that we issue the $5 million bond to help, one, get the Little School Road project started, get a 100% design so we know exactly where we're at, where we sit with these other funding opportunities that are here in the Metroplex. We hear a lot about the mobility, some of the things that connect us to other cities. The communication aspect of that is, how do we generate economic development? And I believe all the things that we're talking about, this project creates. It helps us connect with Everman, Forest Hill, Fort Worth, Mansfield, Tarrant County, unincorporated area, Arlington, and it just goes beyond that. So everything that they have asked of us, we believe we have a project that's going to fulfill every one of those needs. And we feel confident that we'll be able to move forward and get this project started. But first, we have to have 100% design, and this $5 million bond will allow us to do that, and will also allow us to get needs of our community and our citizens and what they're requesting of us as well, which is also a ladder truck of how we serve our community at a standard that's acceptable, and honestly of what they're requesting of us. Also with that, we also have other funding that's in the sense of that $5 million that we can come in and we can choose some of the roads that we may not be able to fund on an annual basis. And that's what this does. And that's the reason why you see a list here. The Oak Crest, Peggy Lane, Shady Creek, Swinney Height. Those are very valuable streets that we see our future is a part of. We see growth in those areas. We see investment in those areas. And I believe by the survey that we done late 2025 fulfill some of our citizens' visions of what we should be doing. With that, we have Sydney here to help go through some of the challenges that we've had with Little School Road. If I did not answer your question, Sydney can obviously help us. He is with Freeze and Nichols Engineering, and he's been the main project manager for this.
Sydney, good to see you again. Before I get started, do you have any prepared remarks you wanted to run through, or?
No, I think Daryl hit it pretty well. I would say part of the reason for the discrepancy on the cost early on, granted, we're on limited information at the time. One big thing is inflation, obviously. Another one is just that Tarrant County bond program didn't allow us to add contingency and inflation to that number. So we were proposing a different number at the time, but they kind of cut that down to that $13 million because of they took out those elements that we wanted to include at the time.
Okay. So the amount that the council in 24 approved was 1.18 million towards the Little Road design phase, and that was going to be to get us to 30%. The 30%'s not done. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah, we're currently on hold. We've gotten survey, we've gotten some elements on that, but we're currently on hold as of April, a couple months ago.
All right. And then, City Manager, you're asking for 1.2 million out of this $5 million proposed bond to also be applied to the design of Little Road.
That's correct.
And would that extra 1.2 get us to 100% design?
Correct, because there's also Tarrant County bond money is already in the project, so I'm not sure if that's counted for that reimbursement, but essentially that total should be around that number.
So is the total amount to get to 100% design 2.3 million, or is it 6 or almost 5 million? Because if it's a 50% match by Tarrant County, are we spending 5 million and getting 2.3 back from them?
Well, our investment will be the 2.3 with the idea that we get reimbursed from Tarrant County. That's the reason why we have it marked at 2.3.
Okay.
So the county is going to reimburse you for construction, right away, and design, 50%.
Of the original 1.18 million, Sydney said it's on hold. How much of that has been spent or encumbered? Can you tell us that?
Yeah, I think we're roughly, because we've gotten survey and Sue are taking care of, so those some of the big elements there. I think we're around maybe 300,000 roughly.
Okay. You mentioned the grant that we didn't get this last cycle. What's the strategy moving forward to get us in a better position for the next cycle?
That's kind of exactly what Daryl was mentioning about just progressing the design and showing that show of faith that, hey, we're committed to the project. Original intention of that 30% design was in that direction, but ultimately, you know, the more designs you can get, the further along in the design process you get, the stronger that argument becomes.
And do we have any idea what the right-of-way impact will be for this project?
Yeah, rough, based on the current alignment, you know, I think we're saying like maybe 7 to 10 parcels that are impacted. That's the advantage to the preferred alignment currently. There's 2 big properties we're going through, and so it mitigates the number of properties being impacted. But I think the biggest, I guess, pushback we've had is those properties on the west side of New Hope Road that we're connecting the intersection to. But yeah, this preferred alignment is showed the minimal impact to properties to right of way.
All right, so I'm going to come back to the property alignment in just a second, but I have a question kind of pivoting back to the city manager. Daryl, you mentioned the other $1 million we approved, I think in 24 also for the sublet realignment, which kind of went nowhere. That $1 million, where did that money, did that get transferred into this project also?
Are you talking about with Kennedale? Or I'm sorry,
Kennedale sublet realignment, where they wanted to make sublet a right angle to the parkway, and then that fizzled out pretty fast.
Yes, we had sent a letter to Commissioner Simmons requesting that we combine the both projects to increase the funding for the Little School Road. With that, we have not received a response back from her office currently or from Tarrant County Transportation as a whole.
Okay, so there's a chance though that we get another $1 million. We could remove this $1 million that we're asking for in the bond if we can reallocate those funds into this project.
I probably wouldn't go that far. It currently is 2 different funding sources. So until we get them combined, so a better way of looking at it, the Little School Road project is a Kennedale project. The Kennedale realignment, Kennedale sublet realignment is a Tarrant County initiative project. So although they're the same funding, they're two separate funding. They're funded in different manners ultimately within Tarrant County Transportation. The letter that we had sent to Tarrant County was exactly that, requesting that the Kennedale project, Little School Road project, be turned into a Tarrant County initiative. One, because we feel the mobility fits. Commissioner Simmons did agree with us in that alignment of it, that there's more possibilities with that. However, that I'm aware of, it has not moved to the Commissioner's Court for approval to combine those two projects.
Okay, thank you. And I think, Sydney, one of the concerns we heard at the neighborhood meeting we had back in April 23rd, is the impact to the residents. I know you mentioned it's only touching two larger properties, but one thing that's come up, I think, a few times is if we look at the intersection of the extension with New Hope, in the design we have in the packet, it looks like a regular T intersection. And so the impact looks nominal. But if we look at the drawing we had on April 23rd, it's a pretty substantially sized roundabout, which curves quite a bit into the properties there. That's the bigger concern. So how do we kind of position this in such a way where we minimize their impact, but also accomplishing the need? Because I think we're sending mixed signals on it's a T, it's a roundabout. It's a non-impactful, it's largely impactful.
That was my fault. That's not Sydney's. That was me. I asked Sydney to put a roundabout there. That was the future idea of what we put there. The intent, if we want a stop sign, if we want a signal light, whatever we want to put there, that is still an option. One of the things Sydney's was working on at the time was the transportation concept. What would that design look like and what does it call for? One of the biggest questions that was coming out, do we need a red light? And that's the reason why the traffic study was being generated, which Sydney and them were just now been able to fulfill that, and we have that. But the idea, if we come in with a red light, a stop sign, roundabout, or whatever traffic enforcement or traffic diagram we want, that's still debatable. It doesn't have to be a roundabout. If it's taking up too much room, or if we don't feel that's within the projected 10, 20, 30-year projections, we can change that. That's not a mandatory roundabout. And that was the same thing I explained on April the 23rd as well.
So we could limit the amount of property we take if we just don't put the large roundabout and we use another traffic style intersection.
We can have just a T, and ultimately that's what it's going to be until we're able to come in and commit to phase two. And again, just like I was explaining, we're a minimum of 5 years out. To say we're going to start construction, Sydney may have a different view of it, but for me, we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have to find $30 million. So we get started, we're 5 years out. And with that, that's a stop sign. We don't create a roundabout that does not have an end to it, because by then we got to go to phase two, which is going to indicate even more money for Sydney and Freese and Nichols. And we're trying to get to phase one.
So my last remark on this for now is I'm a big supporter of this project. I think it's important to the future of the city. My concern with the ask now is that we've already approved over $1 million for the 30% design. That hasn't been produced yet, but now we're going back and we're asking for more money when we haven't delivered on what we allocated the first time. So that's my heartburn on this for the moment. So I'll let the rest of the council discuss.
So are you indicating the 30% design? Is that what you're referring to?
Right. So in 24, when we allocated the 1.18 million, the outcome of that 1.18 million was supposed to be a 30% completed design package, which even then we could park if we needed to and come back at a future date. So, okay, now take this and get to 60, 90, 100. We haven't seen the 30% design completed, and we're already being asked to approve more funds towards the project. I'd rather see it get to a completion state of, okay, the original 1.18 million has been spent. The 30% design is completed. Now we're coming back. We want to get to the 60% design. We need X amount of dollars to get there. Instead, we're asking to approve more money on top of a design that's not already at the 30% that we already approved before.
We,
Hang on. So if we were to do this bond to get you to 100% design, what's the time frame of us getting to 100% design, since we haven't got to the 30% design in 2 years? What's your time frame? What do you think is a reasonable time frame?
Yeah, I think a reasonable time for focus on just the design. I mean, if we exclude right-of-way acquisition, which would be kind of something we want before we go to construction, we could probably finish the design within 2 years for sure. Yeah, we're probably about maybe a few months from finishing up the 30% design. Really depending on coordination with TechStop and Union Pacific on what additional, I guess, submittals they might need from us during that time period. But I would say utility relocation and right-of-way acquisition, aside from the design, will kind of address that timetable.
So are you saying, I mean, I'm old, so my hearing's going.
Sure.
You have to say sure to that, Sydney. But stop it. You're about 2 months out from a 30% design?
I guess I meant 4 months out from
4
the
months out?
design. Yeah, if we were to pick it back up again, we were originally anticipating around September to have that done, but with a hold, it kind of pushes a little bit longer. But ultimately, once we get 30% down, have already survey in, Sue in, a lot of those other components already taken care of, it lets us be able to streamline that effort to finish up the design.
And you think we can be at 100% design within 2 years?
Correct.
And you're saying one of the reasons why it's been dragging so long is the communications between all the different entities that control the area.
Correct. That's part of it too. Yeah.
But because all that legwork's being done now, the last 80% will be a little bit faster because the legwork's done.
Correct. Yeah. Once you get the ball rolling, it really kind of falls into place.
Thank you for
I
clarifying.
think that means 70%, Jeff, because, just want to check your math there.
I was having you check my math. You said math earlier, so I was checking you.
Okay.
So on the 100% design, when they do that, are they going to be doing core drilling and stuff like that? Because we don't even know if that area would even support the road or a bridge.
Correct. Yeah. Part of our 30% design scope is to do that geotechnical analysis for the bridge, the pavement, and especially the foundations at the signal at the intersection. So that's all part of our 30% scope to do that and have that analysis.
So are we saying, and not me because I'm new here, that the 30 million roughly is from the 287 Kendall Parkway, the bridge to New Hope Road, that's $30 million.
Correct. Yeah.
That doesn't include phase 2 at all.
It doesn't. The big ticket item on that is the bridge. And I guess I would add context too. So even with us having the survey at this point, we're actually able to reduce that length of the bridge, was kind of what we were hoping for, having that 30% design underway. That showed us that, hey, this is a real kind of topography of the area, and able to kind of reduce that bridge length a little bit, to reduce that again, that's the biggest piece of the cost on that phase 1 project is the bridge. Comparatively, like phase 2 is like a fraction of the cost of phase 1, because again, that bridge is such a key component of phase 1.
And so is the bridge a 4-lane, 3-lane?
It's four lane divided with it's a narrow median. We wanted to reduce the footprint of the bridge as a whole.
Right.
But yeah, it's 4-lane divided.
Thanks, Ryan. Sometimes we ask questions just for everybody to have edification.
I guess my biggest fear, because, I watched this project go from 3 million to 13 to 30,
Sure.
is that even with your reduction, like you were just talking about, which makes it cheaper, if we can't find funding fast enough or we drag our feet like we have been in the past, that's going to wash out in the end.
Sure.
Is that a concern of yours as well?
It is a concern, but that us being able to design and then basically detach the construction cost of that, we say, hey, we have the designer ready to go. We can refine that cost as the city gets, or where other funding we might get. We might be federal funding, and that in itself would push that timetable back anyway. But we would, if we had that federal funding, we would have that argument with federal grant program or TechStop to say, hey, we're looking at a 5-year projection. Here's a design, and we can have that much more clear OPCC at that point versus what we were doing previously off of a lot of information that is a little more inaccurate.
But in essence, by the end, it's whoever bids on it at
Correct, yeah.
appropriate
And
price.
our estimate could be high. This obviously it's an estimate.
We could be high,
Big
it could be
thing.
low.
Yeah. And
That's happened.
We're high that we can get, cheaper construction costs, but we're so far off from that point at this point. So it's
So
definitely a
far.
big call.
Get closer though.
Yeah. Inching ahead. Yeah.
I said a question. I'm sorry.
If we have the design, we could show vendors or people that we're looking for grants from, the project is shovel ready. If we don't have that,
Christian, I'm on board with this. Give me 100% design and I'll go sell it. I can't sell something drawn on a napkin. And that's in essence what a 30% design is. If you can put something on paper, I can go out there and try to sell this a little bit better. So you get no argument for me on that.
your comment. Really. So thank you.
But just to confirm though, even if we don't approve this now, the design work doesn't stop. We would still get to a 30% design before this is all said and done, even if we'll exhaust the 1.18 million and we can pick this up in a year if we need to, or some other future time.
Yeah, and that 1.18 million is it was a that's the scope we had at the time. Like Darryl mentioned, the roundabout could go away, and that could be savings that we would eventually. The intent would be to carry over any savings to later design stages. So I don't want to stick too much on that 1.18 million. That's something we were hoping to carry over with later design stages as we find savings and ways to shave off.
So you don't think you'll spend the full amount to get to the 30%?
I don't think. I mean, just from the jump, we initially included $100,000 contingency to that, with the intention of some funding program opens up and we be able to jump on that quickly. But that alone is a contingency that's already in the project currently, that 1.18 million. That again, that would, if we don't go for a grant program and pull that off for later, we can use that toward later design stages too.
And then I'll ask the question, but I still would like to revisit the impact to the neighbors on New Hope and kind of where this punches out at, if there's flexibility there. But that may be a different conversation for a different time, but we need to settle that quickly so that you can proceed. Kind of what we heard is that there may be other areas over there that would be less impactful to the neighbors. It just may just take a slightly different route through the undeveloped land.
I look at it a little bit differently. I think no matter where we move a route, it affects property owners. And I think that's one thing that we looked at in 24 is what alignment fits most, where it's cost effective and it's less impactful to all of our residents in that area. Well, I want to believe that's what our council done 2 years ago, is to come up with that route that was most effective for all involved. The way I look at it, I think our alignment is accurate. If we decide to move it further south, it affects just as many, if not more. I think right now, to Sydney's point, if we're only affecting 7, if we move it further south, we're affecting more than that, and future development as well. So no matter which way we go, it's affecting development and it's affecting everybody's property. Now, I also believe if we do move it forward further south or north, either way, the cost of it jumps dramatically. It creates another bridge. It creates more roadway to make that alignment go further south. So I think it adds additional cost to that. Sydney, is there something to add?
It's something I'll add too. So as Darryl mentioned, we do have a preliminary traffic analysis that we've done for both intersections, Kennedale Parkway and at New Hope Road. And we found that a roundabout does work, but also two-way stop condition or signal also works. At this point, there's not a huge traffic demand that we can project that's at that intersection that will warrant us a new, something that's outside of those, minimal elements. I mean, granted, not saying the roundabout wasn't minimal, but obviously future growth of that roundabout was a pretty decent size, but that the two-way stop condition does work for the intersection is what we're projecting for that 20-year projection.
Do you have a rough estimate if we did move it further south? One of the discussions we've had last couple of months since April the 23rd, what would that look like on any additional funding that it may take?
So I guess as far as Tarrant County is concerned, we would still maintain 4-lane divided all the way to New Hope Road, which is kind of the bottom line for the Tarrant County bond program. The added cost, because the bridge is such a big component of it, added cost, we're talking maybe several $100,000, maybe additional culvert crossing because we're going more through the floodplain to the south. One of the challenges that jumped out to us as we were looking at that, maybe a further more south alignment, there's also a cemetery down there that would kind of be in line with that route in that direction. I think it's Snyder Cemetery. Right. And so that could be a challenge when you're dealing with cemeteries for alignment turnoff, and as Darryl mentioned, you're impacting several more properties going that direction. And so yeah, that's So not so much just the construction cost that's concerned, it was also the cost of right of way and cost of environmental clearance because of the more work to the floodplain.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in because David asked the question, which was great, because you responded. It's an open conversation now. We do have an obligation to these property owners that could be impacted, whether it's 3 years, possibly from now, at the earliest, but maybe up to 5 years. There's an obligation we have as a city council, I guess, to protect them and to give them as much notice as possible and to let them know what's going on. What happened after our last town hall meeting that we had on site? And, did we have any change in thoughts at that time during that event? Being question number one. And then question number two, what would be the impact if we were to move? Could we realign New Hope where it would touch the Little Road extension further east?
I guess to answer your first question, I guess a couple of changes we made was going from the roundabout to the two-way T intersection there, and that almost immediately reduced the impacts to the properties to the for the phase one, at least to the west of New Hope Road. But we also, I think that's kind of the biggest one. We did look at some other alignment alternatives, as Daryl mentioned, the one to the south. We looked at potentially one to the north, but it kind of had the same impact of they showed a number of properties being impacted. And so, yeah, one of the challenges to doing a alignment change at this point, not to get in front of the city here, but because we have gone through multiple previous council meetings talking about these preferred alignments, to kind of shift to a different alignment at this point will kind of raise more flags. Not to say there can be minor changes. It's just that's a concern we're trying to kind of balance with as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we all agree on this concept. This has a huge impact on the growth of our city, has a huge impact on the success and the future of our city. But we want to be mindful of the impact that it has. And I truly want to make sure that we've looked at every option and take it into effect and consider those costs and what the overall cost is. And so, but I believe we've done much of that. Myself, as a new council member, I'm playing catch up. I also live on that side of town as well. And so there's an impact of it and an obligation that we have as council to have open, clear communication with our neighbors there to make sure that they understand what may be happening.
Just a little follow-up. When you mentioned the other, a moment ago about the intersection, how the projections are, it's not going to be high traffic, which I agree. However, if we do get the county to agree to do the realignment through this area, obviously it's going to make it a Cooper Street of that area in the next 20 years. So for me, I like future-proofing. I would just keep an eye on that. If it ever looks like it's shifting, then in that intersection, I suggest we maybe go a little bit grander in preparation for that. Sure.
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
I guess one final question for Sydney. Sydney, has the railroad provided their engineering review and clearance confirmation? Have they signed off on that? Or because I think it says we informed them, or there's been communications, but has UP come back and said this is the minimum clearance height?
Yeah, they have pretty strong clearance needs for that crossing. We've provided them so far a conceptual exhibit showing that proposed crossing meeting their vertical clearance about 24 feet 9 inches, I believe, maybe 29 and 4. I forget which one is one of those. But yeah, so we've got the concept to them. They approved it. They're good with that. They're now looking for our next step of 30% design plan to show that more full picture of that crossing. But yeah, our intention with our proposed profile is to meet that vertical clearance that they provide in their standards.
All right, just want to make sure they weren't going to move the goalpost on us after we got the design to a certain point and then say you need to add 5 more feet. Okay, thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Sydney. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for the time.
thank you. Thank you, Christian. All right. Any other discussion? No? All right, then we'll adjourn this meeting. We'll see everybody tomorrow night to talk more about this again.